Welcome aboard the ship that can't get its mind out of the gutter. It's the Redenbacher Podcast, here for another edition of the Redenbacher Book Club. I'm your captain, Matt Murphy, and today's in-flight meal is insight with a side of contemplation. Today I'm joined by, as always, Commander Ben Bullerwell. How's it going, Ben?
I'm doing well, man. I'm doing good. A casual Saturday morning. I've slept in, I'm well rested, and I'm ready to discuss the Orville, baby.
Yeah,
How are you doing?
I'm doing great. I mean, it's been 6 weeks since we've recorded. We're super late on this one, we'll admit right off the bat. But I went up to Toronto to visit Ben for like 2.5 weeks, and he went to Alberta. So, we weren't just doing nothing. So, give us a
We
give us a break.
definitely weren't doing nothing, guys. I would like to take the opportunity to apologize as well for our lack of content, really. Like Matt says, we've been quite busy. We've been taking vacations. We've been doing this and that. And, guys, sometimes life just gets really busy. But we're hoping that you guys don't mind, and we're hoping that you're as ready to dive into this as we are. It's going to be great.
Just one other note. I'd like to note that I'm recording during a hurricane, so we'll see what happens.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, so today we're talking about issue 2, New Beginnings Part 2 of the Orville comic from Dark Horse, and it did not disappoint. Last week was more of a setup, and I feel this gave us a thrilling conclusion to the story that was set up last week.
Yeah, it definitely gave us some answers to some things that we were talking about last issue, rather, sorry. We've gotten some answers, and we've got some more questions. I know I do, anyway.
I love the cover for this book, too. It shows Ed and Gordon with the spears pointed at their head and little Chog shadows in the background. It's cool. There's a nice little contrast between past and future and stuff. It's nice. It's good visual.
Yeah, I like it very much. Definitely gets you concerned when you just bought it and you look at it, you're like, oh, God.
And I will say right off the bat, we were wrong about the Chogs. It seems like they did not turn evil yet, so you never know. It could happen, but we were wrong last time. Or I was wrong mostly about the Chogs being evil.
Yeah, it seems like the Chogs are actually victims to it all, and not, like the instigator.
Yeah, and they're still kind of humans that kind of screwed up their entire planet, and they're like, oh, we'll let you eat with us and stuff like that. Just don't go sneaking around on us. And they were pretty nice.
Yeah, you know what? They're like generous to almost like a flaw. I guess they don't really realize that the Union had so much to do with like the calamity. But even still, after they mention it, we'll talk about this later in more depth. But they're very forgiving, to say the least.
Well, it shows like wars don't happen among animals. You don't see the buffalo going to war with the caribou or whatever. So that's a human thing. So even then, I don't think they hold grudges and are going to go on a war of humans. They're just innocent creatures in this conflict that want to just live.
Yeah, the Chogs are in like a weird in between. They're not as advanced as say anything really, like the Mocklin, like the obvious not Isaac's people. Yeah, they're just not like at that like stage in their evolution, I guess. But they're far enough evolved that they're like intelligent creatures, but they're still they're kind of like in between animal and like sentient.
They're not advanced enough to be, taken into the Planetary Union, but they're on that point. They're still pretty archaic, but they're pretty much just like sentient animals almost.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting kind of place, I guess, in their species evolution.
Yeah, exactly. This week we don't really have like an A and a B story. Things all kind of come together. There is kind of like a side bit with Cassius that I think let's just get that out of the way because it's not like we come back to it.
True, yeah, might as well, eh?
It's funny, there's this scene here where Kelly is sitting there on the ship. There's a nice exterior shot of the Orville, and she's having a drink in the little bar area that we see on the show frequently. And Cassius comes up, and then she just gives Cassius like a full wall of text. Like, look, Cassius, you're a nice guy, but my life is really complicated. In case you didn't know, my commanding officer is also my ex-husband. But of course you knew that. Everybody knows that. So you can understand I have to tread really carefully, and sometimes I have to put my personal life on hold. That's not to say I'm not interested. I am. You're such a nice guy, I know. I know I said that already, but I really mean it. And if things were different, I would love to see where this takes us. She keeps going, and then Cassius walks up and says, okay, since our relationship is already a huge disaster, there's no harm in me sitting here and looking at the stars with you, right? And he won there. He checkmated at that point, where it's just like, okay, it was I really like the way they do it. And I was always wondering, like, man, what did Cassius say to get Kelly? And that's not a bad line. So
it wasn't too bad. I like the following little panel there where it's just like Kelly saying, yeah, sure, and like her facial expression. It reminded me of when she was talking to Alara in the previous issue and like her realization of like, celibacy. It's just like a pop facial expression. She's like, oh.
Yeah, she's been flipped now twice now between Alara gave her that good advice, and then Cash was like, well, counterpoint. So it's really like an argument between Cassius and Alara right now. I like that you drew attention to that drawing there of Kelly on page 3 when she goes, yeah, sure. I'm pretty sure it's page 3. That's my favorite drawing that David Cabeza has done so far for the comic. I really like it. It's really expressive. It really pops. It is kind of in the foreground of the image, which I just noticed kind of now. And I like Kelly's expression. I think it's really well rendered.
Yeah, I just think it's funny because she just pretty much like shut down Cautious like as hard as she could, and he's just like, well, since everything's like garbage anyway, like wouldn't do any harm if I just sat here with you, would it? And she's like, yeah, she feels something there. There's some excitement or something.
Yeah. Last week we got when Cassius met Kelly. This is the beginning of their relationship, which is interesting. And following Cassius in the school, we also learned that Taupe is still doing well in school, according to Bordas. Clyden, unfortunately, is dissatisfied because they don't teach combat training on the curriculum. And then Kelly saying, well, I guess we'll have to get him a tutor. He's like, that is our intention.
That is our intention, yeah. Like,
you should get Gordon or something to teach him combat. That'd be great. I would watch that. Gordon teaching.
That'd be awesome, yeah. Get them into like the holodeck or whatever.
That's basically all the side material of like the minor stuff that doesn't really have to do directly with this storyline.
Yeah. That's pretty much Cautious and Kelly in a nutshell right there, guys.
We're following up now with Ed and Gordon. We see them. They're on the Chog planet, and it's mealtime. They're going in, and like Ben predicted, they are using the synthesizer for food.
Check.
But unfortunately, they're not making Big Macs and Diet Cokes and fries and stuff. To Gordon's dismay, they get this like sludge, which, Ed's saying maybe the systems don't need to be programmed to. They're maybe set up automatically. And this is just maybe to save resources.
Yeah, it's like if everything's on a preset, it doesn't need to use computer power to like adjust, I guess, the product that it's making. I just love the little panel there, and it's like you can choose to eat anything in the world, and you chose mud, like
yeah. And they keep looking around. They try to go outside the meal hall, and Thawes kind of stops them and says that it's forbidden. So they have to sneak around and go in there later if they're gonna get in there and get any answers they want.
Yeah, it's pretty funny because, like, Thawes he's a nice little bird man. And he's just like, my friends, you can't go in there. It's forbidden. Come, join us and sing in praise. It's like, and that stuck with Gordon, as we know, because he says, man, I can't get those. What does he say? He goes, those dinner songs weren't bad. I can't get them out of my head. Like,
yeah, that was great. I love that. I need a Gordon cover of a Chog ballad ASAP.
Oh yeah, like let's get Scott Grimes to do like the Chog mealtime LP or whatever. Like,
yeah. And by the way, yeah, we are going into full spoilers with this, so guys, definitely pick up your copy. I mean, this is really enjoyable. If you're missing the Orville, be sure to grab a copy. People worked hard on it, and I would love nothing more than to see this comic series continue. So definitely pick up a copy, or maybe wait for a trade paperback.
You guys know, like, I'm not super huge into comic books, but while Matt was visiting in Toronto, we ended up going around and picked up some comic books. I bought a physical copy of New Beginnings Part 2 instead of on my Kindle, so rest assured I have full color this time.
Yeah, we went to the Beguiling. We actually walked from Ben's place to a nice shop in Toronto called the Beguiling. I highly recommend it to any comic fans that are visiting Toronto or live in Toronto. It's they've got an amazing selection. Upstairs, you're like, oh, this looks kind of sparse. But they've got like a full basement of hard-to-find stuff. Like, I managed to find some comics that I've been looking for myself for about a year and a half. So I think it's a good spot. And there was only 2 copies left of New Beginnings Part 2 when we went. So it's doing pretty darn well, I have to say.
And, like, might I add, like, how amazing is that they had 2 copies left?
Right.
And that was, what, the day of release? Or the day following release? It was one of the 2.
I'm pretty sure we went, like, on a Wednesday. We went on New Comic.
Yeah, I think we were as well.
Definitely doing well in Toronto, at least.
Yeah, absolutely. So hats off to you guys over there. It was a lot of fun. And like Matt says, the basement it's wonderful. There's so much stuff in the basement. I couldn't believe it.
Yeah, it's like Indiana Jones warehouse levels of stuff. But yeah, anyways, the boys go sneaking out at Ed and Gordon. They go and they notice that there was like a hull breach just starboard of the engine room. So they manage to sneak inside there. And I guess the Chogs do not know about this, which would seem to be the other entrance they should be guarding. But they do not.
Right, you'd think. Like,
but they're birds. I'm sure the doorways are weird to them. They only know about natural cave openings and stuff like that. I'm sure like this stuff is foreign to them.
Yeah, we can't hold it against them. That's for sure.
So they do some scanning. They look at the targeting system of the ship, and they notice that they have the cannon's battery. It's only at 5%, but it's aimed to attack anything that goes within, I think it's 1,000 kilometers. why would they do that? What situation is it so that the burden has to be left that way? And after some more snooping, they eventually do find the reason for this.
Although a quick time out here, when they actually do enter the building, the ship rather, the Burton, and they're looking in the reactor room, I think it's the first scene that we actually see wildlife. Like there's a scorpion in the bottom panel, and that's the first time I've noticed anything alive on that planet except for the Chogs.
That's a good point. Scorpions are known to live in like deserts and really harsh environments as is, so I think that only stuff like that could be surviving. I'm sure there's cockroaches as well if they were on this planet in the first place.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I just thought that was a interesting little thing because it really stood out to me when I was reading. I was like, what the hell is that? And it's like, oh my god, something's alive on this planet other than the Chogs.
No, it's true. It's a good point. Thaw's earlier tells them, it's like, hey guys, stay out of there. It's forbidden. But that's the calmest he's going to be. When Thaw says something, it's forbidden. You kind of believe them. So they keep looking. They're looking in there, and Ed goes up to the captain's chair and manages to share some power with his comm scanner with the panel there, the captain's little control panel there. And Ed notices there's a message, and Gordon goes, how do you know this message would be there? And he goes, it's where I would put it. So, shows good leadership throughout the generations and stuff. Like, hey, you know what? Here's a good spot. Captain's chair, it's useful. And that's where we learned of the plight of Ensign Hodges.
Yeah, this is actually like so phenomenal. This is when the comic went from like really good to like fantastic. It became kind of like a Star Trek ethical kind of moral issue, right? Like there was some problem solving to be done, and Hodges did a fantastic job considering that, like really he's not qualified to be doing like any of this. Like it was just because of like the deaths of his crewmate and his senior staff that he got placed in the position that he was in. But I think any captain would be very proud of what he's done. Like it was phenomenal.
Yeah, and we see later on he left a huge impact on Ed with the way that he acted, and that kind of influences Ed to maybe change some things about his life. So Ensign Hodges really is like, he's the footnote on what you should do if you're in that kind of situation. And you might not even know if you're going to see, your home again, but how can I use what's left of my life to save or undo what damage I've done? And that's what he does.
Yeah, it's so selfless. It's really like the action of like a proper Starfleet, or in this case, Union officer. It kind of gave me the chills in a weird way,
Yeah, one thing we kind of skipped over was when Ed's saying like, oh, well, we still have time. Isaac's probably still studying that magnetar. And then on the next page, you see Isaac saying, oh, I finished my study on the magnetar. It felt so much like the comic. Like they really have managed to capture Isaac. And there's a Bortus part later on that's very, very Bortusy. And
no, I know what you mean. It totally did remind me of the show as well. It's just like, well, like Isaac still has a few hours and all done, like next scene. So.
Yeah, and when Isaac's talking, he's like, oh, I've improved the scanners myself. So like Isaac on the crew really is like, he's great. He's managed to improve their tech. So the Orville has a leg up on other ships with this, with the Kaelon here.
It definitely is helpful to have Isaac, because he said something to Kelly, and then Alara kind of piped in and said, or did you just give like a bad estimate of time so you'd beat it? And he was like, no, like I've actually upgraded, like my estimate was based on Union, I guess, like technology. And he updated it. So, yeah, I mean, they've got like the upper hand for sure.
Yeah. So back to Ensign Hodges, he basically says that they set up the synthesizer so it'd be a life support system, gathered up the Chogs, and set up the cannon so that it would protect them for any debris up in space. Because according to him, the buoy was there and it was just like a kind of like a trick, and the battle was already over, and there was so much debris around. So that's what caused him to crash into the Earth. So the war already screwed over a former soldier and realized that, hey, this guy's whole environment is probably not going to be great, but then my ship crashing down has the reactor leak, and then I ruined their entire biosphere. So just went from bad to worse for the Chogs after that.
It sure did. There's like a great little panel here, and it really shows like how forgiving and how maybe like naive or innocent the Chogs really are, like almost childlike in a sense. After like the Burton crashed and like it admitted all the poisons into the biosphere from the reactor, at the end of it, like Hodges says, they want to help us. They don't know that they're going to die because of what we did. Me and my crew, there's about 20 of us. We're not going to let that happen. I don't know what we can do, but we're going to do something. We've got to do something. They didn't ask to be part of this. So it's like, even though like, yeah, like their whole planet is actually dying, the Chogs, I mean, obviously they don't know, but they're very they're just very warm, friendly, and yeah, you've ruined their whole planet and they still want to help you. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah. They're also kind of like an allegory for other kind of like war-torn refugees who really don't have any part in this war. They don't have any say in it. Just they're living their lives, yet they're some of the greatest victims of this huge conflict. So it kind of mirrors our own life.
No, you're absolutely right. They're just the innocent, and they're getting roped into something that they really have nothing to do with. Like it was the cell and the union that were fighting, not the poor Chog people.
Yeah. One thing I noticed, at the page where we reveal Hodges, it looks very interesting the way that, like, it's almost like a 1960s kind of style that it's drawn in, I find, when they're looking at the screen.
You can definitely see that there is age in the, like, do you mean like the actual, like the drawing of the character?
Yeah, like it looks like there's like the shading in his face, like for the cheekbone and stuff, it's reminiscent of like 60s, 70s kind of comics.
Okay, see, that's something I don't know too much about, but no, that is super cool. And like maybe it's just trying to show age between, like the era of the Burton and the era of the Orville. Like 100 years have passed. So I mean, yeah, I think you're probably right. Like it's nice and old-fashioned-y, and you can see that the technology is kind of like it seems more limited. Like because on the Orville we have these panels that come up that are almost like a holographic monitor screen.
Yeah.
Whereas this very much appears to just be like a traditional panel. Yeah.
That's a good point. So yeah, either way, there's some effect done to make it look older, which is which fits because the Burton is at least 100 years old.
Mm-hmm.
So I did think that was a really interesting thing. And last week, now they went through the ruins, and I mentioned Admiral Thrawn and how there's a storyline there where there's some war-torn species or a planet that's a little screwed up because of war. And this is kind of similar to what happened here, where there was a war above, and then ship crashed down, and then their biosphere is poisoned. So it is in that realm, and I really like that storytelling when you see hey, here's what's behind the curtain, here's the third party that we never even think of in these conflicts, and it was very effective, and immediately I was even more engaged in the story. So that's good storytelling by David A. Goodman.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I just completely agree with that.
Yeah, so after they figure out what happened, Ed and Gordon start wondering, like, well, the Orville is going to come down towards us, and that means that they're going to follow our breadcrumbs, and that means they're going to run into do the same thing we did. They're going to run into the transmitter, and then they're going to come towards us, and either we're going to fire on them, or they'll be able to take the hit, and then they'll just destroy everything around us. So they kill the Chogs and Ed and Gordon. So they're in dire straits now and have to hurry to make this right.
Mm-hmm. I very much like it, though, when they get found out, when they're in the reactor and the Chogs come.
That's one of my favorite
Thaw's
panels.
is like, no one is allowed in the food place. It's like, Thaw's, I can explain. Take them. I like it because you think like this is happening in the night, so presumably the Chogs like woke up, realized that Ed and Gordon were no longer with them, got like what looks to be like around 20 Chogs awake to go confront them. Like, you know what I mean?
It's an angry Chog mob, and they're coming. Yeah, and like I wish there were like onesies or something, or like housecoats, but no, dire straits there.
Slippers and nightcaps and shit.
Yeah, I know chickens get up early. I don't know if the early Chog catches the sneaky human, but no, I liked it, and it reminds me of like Zelda, in the Ocarina of Time when you have the sneaker on Hyrule Castle behind the guards, and then you get caught and they point at you. Yeah, except they're more violent than the actual castle guard. I love that panel of Thaw's just whipping the rocket at.
Oh, it's such a good, like, dude, honestly, I might just like scan that and get it onto like my computer and use it as like a background for my phone or something. It's just like you can see the hate in Thaw's eyes. How dare you enter the food place? Like, yeah, I will kill you with stones.
Yeah, that's gotta be a meme or something. Like, oh man, I love it. And David Cabeza already knows of our love of the Chogs after just one debut issue, so he kind of knew already that we'd be having a field day with this, and we are. It's fantastic. Later on, spoiler alert, the Chogs get resettled, and I would really love to see them in the series proper. That would be fantastic.
Yeah, that would be phenomenal.
Maybe they could join the baseball team at the Union. They seem to have pretty good arm on them with that rock throw.
Yeah, right. I was actually thinking, okay, to go back to the panel of Thaw's throwing the rock, if you were just put like Ash Ketchum's hat on and just Photoshop a Pokeball over that stone,
Dude, yeah, that could be a meme like, oh, when I heard about the Dexa controversy for Pokemon, it's like, but when November 17th comes, oh man, that's happening, folks. Anyways,
Oh my god.
oh, that's beautiful. So yeah, thank you, David Cabeza and David A. Goodman, and of course, I also want to thank Michael Atea. The coloring has been fantastic. Really good color work in this.
Yeah, I can finally really appreciate all the color now because, as some of you may know, like my Kindle, it's black and white. So I'm really having a good time with this one.
That's
This
rough.
one's
Like no other part. It's not like if they for like a red, it's like, oh, sorry, to put it on a Kindle, the words aren't gonna be there. Like his entire job is kind of like cut out of that.
it's
So
been like
that's,
turned to grayscale. It's like
yeah. So that's not, but I really
yeah,
appreciate it. The color really makes the artwork pop.
yeah, like that blood gushing out of Ed's head, like whew, like
I love how Ed just says like he's like, oh, I'm trying to help, oh, and he seems like
Oz, please, we can help. Ah! Like,
yeah. So like that's a rough go, and I like to cut the space as well, where it's like he would be blacked out, but also they're transitioning the space to show like the Orville out there.
yeah, no, it's actually beautiful. Like that three like extra long panels, and they all kind of make up one photo. Or like I kind of picture like the Orville like rotating downwards or something. You're like do. But it's really nice. Yeah, it's a good transition. You can see Dan and his big, strange cantaloupe-looking head.
So the Orville runs across the buoy, the communications buoy from the Burton themselves, and Kelly asks Isaac if he could interface with it, and then Alara's like, why would you do that? Why would you, what do you hope to find? And she goes, I don't know, but it's what Ed would do. So again, we get more echoes, just like earlier where Gordon's like, why would you check there? It's like what I would do. So like you have these captains, and Kelly's taken on the duty as basically a captain. Like she's commander, but she's taken control of the ship many a time. And you just kind of think,
she's like the acting captain for like a lot of it. So.
Yeah, so it's like, what would my previous great captain do? And it kind of shows that great leadership echoes throughout time. And if you make the right decision, people will look back on that, especially if it's a uniquely heroic decision like Hodges. So great leadership is always remembered.
No, absolutely. That's an excellent thing to bring up there. Yeah, no, I agree. It's like you can tell, despite what's happened between Ed and Kelly, like Kelly still has a tremendous amount of respect for Ed. She, I guess, in some ways, definitely still like looks up to him because undoubtedly Ed is a fantastic captain.
Yeah, I'm always down for seeing more of Ed being a great leader, or anyone. Like whenever we see Lara or Kelly step up to the plate, it's always nice. Even Gordon, when he tries to take a kick at the can, there, it's interesting to see characters want to do more.
Yeah, I guess it goes back to what Claire was saying a long time ago when they phased out money and now they kind of like work towards like being the best them they can be. Yeah.
Exactly. So Ed and Gordon wake up, tied together, surrounded by Chogs, as you do when you've been captured by Chogs, and Ed tries to reason with them, and he realizes, after talking with Thawes, they realize that he must have got this information somewhere about their history, and then he realizes there's an elder around, and Thawes brings them to him, and then we get Rop, the 107-year-old leader of the Chogs, or elder at least.
I just like it, like on the page before that when he's talking about, he's like, the food place is a ship, or was, that flies, and when it crashed, it leaked poison that killed life on your planet. I just like Gordon when he's like, I'm not with him. We barely know each other.
We have the same uniforms and everything, but no. I'm not with him.
And so far we've been real close, but right now we're not associated.
Yeah. When I was reading this, it's just like, I'm cool for having Gordon accompany everybody on missions, even if it's like, Batman and he's looking for Robin, just bring Gordon. Like, it's always great to have Gordon there.
Yeah, no, Gordon is, he's a lot of things, but he is really funny.
Another way that they could have like gotten the Chogs on their side, Gordon should have just like given them new music and shown them new songs. So just like do his covers of Air Supply and stuff like that, and they can't really tie him up for that much longer.
No, it's true. We'd have a musical episode, and it would be the Chogs and Gordon. They'd be singing, and everything would be wonderful.
Just make a band, Gordon the Chogs.
Gordon the Chogs. I would buy an album or go see them live or whatever. I'd support it.
Yeah, no, it's true. I'd be there, but
buy some merch. Gordon and the Chogs, that'd be a sick t-shirt.
Oh yeah, get on it, David. No, I'm just kidding. This is great. So eventually they do manage to talk to Rop, and thanks to Rop, they actually do manage to get this conflict solved, where Rop says he's the only Chog that knows about humans, which is, he has the greatest understanding of the situation. and he's the most likely to be reasoned with. But unfortunately, as they're trying to discuss this, you hear the hum of the cannon, and it fires at the Orville, which is caught up to Ed and Gordon. So this really, heightens matters.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you see some panels on the Orville explode. Obviously, Kelly's confused. This is like a barren wasteland. Like, why is there still active cannons?
And she tells Bortus to fire.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, but they let them use their little magic box that they use to communicate, and they manage to tell him to stop. And you see I go, wait, don't. And then she goes, Bortus, and Bortus goes, I did not shoot.
I did not fire.
Yeah, I did not fire. Yeah, and that's so cool to see. And, it's really nice. We've got 2 issues left after this, and, I mean, if they're as good as this, then we've got an exceptional series, and I'd love to see the crew get a lot more adventures. These have been great.
I think this is an excellent means of the Orville universe expanding. Like, I really, really hope that there's going to be more than just, like, the 4 planned comics.
Yeah.
Because this is some really good content, and it brings a lot of joy into my life. We get to talk about it with you guys. Hopefully that brings a lot of joy into your lives.
And we get to see great Union officers that are almost as good as Yaphet and Admiral Hodges. That's great. Next week, we do get to see more of engineering, so we finally get more Lamar, and we get Yaphet. He's on the cover, and I guess he hangs around engineering. I guess he is kind of an engineer, right?
Yeah, he is an engineer on the ship.
I want to get his own uniform.
He's just too funny, right? And I don't know if he could, what would his uniform be? Like a penny?
Maybe like a penny. Maybe like a dye under his neck, like orange or something.
Yeah, like a nice little
get some food coloring.
Of food coloring.
Yeah. So no, I'm really liking this, and we can't really even speculate on the next issue because it could really just be literally anything. We've only seen the cover. There might be a couple pages out there. It could be the Krill, actually, as they could have a run-in with the Krill, because I know the 4th cover is with one of the Krill generals on there. So
I'm curious if it's going to have anything to do with this storyline, because I know this is issue 2 of 2.
Yeah.
So presumably, we didn't really wrap up the ending, though, did we? We didn't really mention that quite yet.
Oh yeah, no, we did not. So things get resolved where the Orville doesn't fire, and then a couple days later, we realize that the captain of the Ulysses wants to be introduced to the Chogs, and they're going to try and do some kind of relief effort, which is really nice. And it's mentioned that their planet should be able to be terraformed within 3 years, which is massive, so they can actually grow stuff again and actually live on their planet. They don't even need to be really relocated, just temporarily.
Yeah, it's quite brilliant because, they're going to relocate them for the time being. They're going to terraform their planet in what's estimated to be under 3 years. This is just like a really awesome example of the Union doing the right thing in the circumstance. Like, this has been an issue that's laid dormant for a century. After the fight, the calamity, or the war, whichever you want to refer to it as, the Chogs have been left on their planet, which is dying or very close to dead. They don't have any means of sustaining themselves naturally, and they're totally reliant on the actions of Ensign Hodges. So now, 100 years later, Ed and Gordon, they find a little buoy. Next thing you know, a problem that's been impacting this place for 100 years is finally going to be resolved, and the Chogs will get to see their planet and in a way that they didn't get to see it before, because aside from Rop, no one remembers the green planet. So
no, exactly. And then they get to experience fantastic movie like Hanson's with their song Do Rop, and so no, I'm just kidding. I'm not. No, it's nice that we get to see the Union undo a mistake from the past. It's nice to go back and do and fix a problem from the 2300s. It's great, and it's a great story. Like, I really enjoy this, and I'm glad it's a part of the Orville tapestry of lore. It's fantastic, and it's a fantastic start for 2 issues. And if it gets better, then I can only imagine what kind of book we're going to be looking at.
Yeah, no, absolutely. In regards to the 3rd issue and the 4th issue, we know it's going to be revolving around engineering. We know that Lamar is going to be a big part of it. We know that Yaphet's probably going to be a pretty big character in it as well. And we know that issue 4 rather, is going to have something to do with the Trill.
The Krill.
The Krill, sorry, not the Trill. Yeah, I would say the Krill probably make an appearance in late issue 3. I'm going to say there's a lot of engineering overhauling going on probably. Maybe some strange mysteries.
Maybe they look at the communications beacon to make sure that it can't be sent out for false reasons or stuff like that. Or you can read its data easier and get a better look at what actually happened to it.
Yeah, absolutely. So I say we're probably going to have a very like in Star Trek, a lot of the time you'd get like, weird episodes where certain features on the ship weren't working properly and might be like an alien host or something. I feel like we might get something along those lines, or maybe, yeah, like a clue to something that the Krill are up to, and then I guess 4 might be like some pretty cool stuff. It might be like very diplomatic. It might be like meeting with the Krill, or it could be like really intensive and action based.
It'd be epic that I'm kind of calling for now. It'd be awesome if we see at the end, they do the little Krill thing, have a little run-in with the Krill, and then at the end of the issue, you see Ed and Gordon or someone say like, man, I'm glad that's over with. And then you see Lieutenant Tyler come in, and then that's how they bring it in. That would be awesome.
That would be really good. Yeah, Talea's entrance to the Union. I'd like to see that very much as well.
Yeah, man. So you heard it here first, folks. As soon as I can edit this. No. Yeah, I think that's interesting. So look at us. We said we probably can't speculate, but on
But we've put some little bits out there to get those ideas going.
So yeah, great work to everyone involved. I love this, and I'm hoping for many more. Ben, anything else?
Yeah, there is like one little panel, 2 panels actually, I wanted to talk about. It's like the very last 2 panels. After they discuss everything that's going to happen with the Ulysses and the Chogs and all that. So Ed goes, so, anything happened while I was away I need to know about? Kelly with like a glass in hand, looking all nonchalant, just nothing that can't wait.
Talking about Cassius, of course.
Exactly, yeah. So I thought that was interesting. I like how it ended.
I don't remember 100%, but I'm pretty sure Ed was introduced to Cassius in season 2, right? So this entire run, she's not going to introduce him.
Yeah, no, I'd say you're right. I would, if I remember correctly, yeah. Ed finds out in episode 2, maybe? Of season
2, something like that. It's like really early season 2. So she's probably not going to tell him. And could lead to things being awkward, because if he doesn't know she's dating someone again, who knows? A ton of hijinks can ensue.
It's like, I think that pretty much brings us up to point with Cautious and Kelly to like where the television show picks up again. They might have like a date or something. There might be brief mention of them in the next 2 episodes, but I think that's pretty much like an ended story right there.
Yeah, and the rumors go around if you used to be married to the captain, but if you're just dating a teacher, So I guess they're okay. They're okay. Not just dating a teacher, obviously. Teachers do an important service to us all, but not as relevant as the captain of the ship. That's like dating the president or something. It also showed, Ed apologized to Kelly in that last page there. It felt like he was being a dick, and he kind of realized it as he was looking at how selfless Hodges was, and here he is being kind of snooty to his ex-wife. So it kind of puts things in perspective. Like, it's life and death for them. For us, I mean, we've got luxuries that many planets can't even fathom. So who am I to be treating people this way?
Yeah, no, it's true. It was definitely an eye-opening experience for Ed. Maybe he feels he's been a bit immature about it all. Maybe he realizes that, being a captain of a starship is a pretty big thing, and you shouldn't let personal feelings interfere with your relationship with your commanding officer.
Exactly. So if you guys like that, hit us up on Twitter and Instagram at the Redenbacher. We have a YouTube channel. If you're watching us there, feel free to subscribe and huck a like. It really helps us get our videos out there. And just let us know your thoughts. We're always interested. And if you've got any questions, just email us at theredenbacher@gmail.com. It's not it's just theredenbacher@gmail.com. And we'd love to hear what you guys have to say.
Absolutely. I'd be very interested in hearing any speculations that you guys have on issue 3 or 4. If you guys want to leave some comments, who knows?
Exactly. So with that, from the Chilly Willy Galaxy, for Ben Bullerwell, this is Matt Murphy, signing off.